commentator Sam Armstrong as well. Very, very good morning to you. And it's so nice that today, particularly after last week, and we've seen, harrowing scenes the week beforehand of the synagogue attack in Manchester, the horrific celebrations of that on our streets Saturday a week ago, and again this Saturday by the supposed pro-Palestinian mob who are just simply anti-Israel and anti-Jew. Call yourself pro-Hamas. Call yourselves what you actually are. And then last Tuesday's anniversary, second anniversary of the October 7th attacks, and again more celebrations on our streets. Today, finally, we are seeing proper, genuine celebrations. Hostages Square in Tel Aviv, across every street in Israel, the joy at the return of the 20 remaining live hostages. What are your thoughts?
Well, good news has been in short supply for 737 days.
38 today.
So these people have spent in the most appalling conditions. Already the footage that we are seeing shows emaciated faces, shows faces that haven't seen daylight in almost 2 years, over 2 years. And can you imagine the ordeal that each and every one of these hostages has gone through? To not know each day if you're going to die, to be kept in a tunnel underground in the most appalling of conditions. And of course, 28, more than are coming home alive, were murdered by Hamas during their time in captivity.
Plenty others as well, but we've already had those bodies back.
And so this is a day, I think, in which of relief, but also I think for so many of those families, and of course you spoke to a guest last week who didn't know if their son was dead or alive.
And unfortunately, when we spoke to him, Tamir Nimrodi is not on the list of live or dead bodies coming back. And we spoke to his mother, Herut, last week. So we just don't know. Also, a Nepalese student, Bipin Joshi. These names, they just, no one knows what's happened to them. And we may never.
But I want to punctuate the good news to say to say something that I think needs saying about the lies that have been told over the past year, the past 2 years. We were told that Benjamin Netanyahu would never do a peace deal because he was determined to keep it on to save his own political skin. Lie. In fact, he secured his objectives and he was so prepared to do a deal that he released 100 Hamas terrorists for every single hostage he got back. So I don't want to hear any of that. We were told that we needed to be carting around sucking up to these people in order to get a diplomatic deal. Lie. Donald Trump, a president we were told was deeply dangerous, was far too aggressive, lacked the temperament to be president of the United States. Lie. Went in there, showed strength and negotiated a peace deal. And we were told that Hamas was broadly a nice enough organisation trying to run it. In fact, we saw even in their dying moments, the last stand of Hamas, they went in there with the hostages and these so-called so-called Gazan civilians that were moping around all of a sudden happened to all have AK-47s. It's amazing how obvious it is to identify who's who when Hamas have decided that when they've got a temporary ceasefire. Every single thing we have been told about this war by the BBC, by the Foreign Office, by the so-called experts has been total and utter hogswash. It was a nonsense, and it played into the hands of those who have been prosecuting a consistent agenda of Jew hatred. And some of them, by the way, who have told the ultimate lie that they were there for Gaza, they were there for the civilians. Well, we're going to see that was a lie. When are we going to see it? Because they're going to be still out on the streets, still protesting, still showing support for a now dismantled terroristic organisation.
Well, they're not dismantled. No, they're not dismantled. That's the thing. And what's really interesting is we have seen execution squads. Hamas being very open about this, executing some of the sort of clan leaders, because there's lots of different organisations vying for control in Gaza. Blatant open executions. It's on film. Even the BBC has noticed it happen. I think there's a point where, enough people are messaging about this and there's enough video. You have to actually take the footage. I mean, they claim things are true, but they haven't even got any videos when Hamas has just told them to say it. So they may as well. This is, it is very, very blatant what is happening. This is going to descend into absolute chaos. Also, here's the thing. despite all these people messaging, I survived the genocide. These are really quite healthy looking people. They're healthier than a lot of people I see in Britain, and they have, quote, survived a genocide. And all these people who are talking about like the starvation. There are so many people looking, you know, we couldn't get food in. Oh, let me look at your lovely new big Mercedes that you're wheeling around doing the hot rods. I mean, come on. This is an absolute joke. I'd love to hear your thoughts, by the way. I must give you the number. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1, standard network rate message. What did you make about Starmer joining world leaders in Egypt? We have some reports now that Netanyahu is going to join those leaders as well, Macron and others. And there's a load of world leaders who are apparently going to stand there and witness this peace plan. They've had sod all to do with it. The claim from Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, I mean, utterly laughable on TV yesterday, that Britain had played a vital role. The only role they played was basically to undermine any negotiations by rewarding, that was the word that Hamas used, rewarding Hamas for October the 7th and holding hostages, saying we'll recognise the Palestinian state without even the most basic requirement of humanity, which was to hand back the hostages they had taken. I mean, what do you make of this? Because you had the US ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. He's a serious player. He's he's not just a golf buddy, you know, serious player. He called the UK government delusional. A public tweet saying that Bridget Phillipson's comment was delusional. And then we get a tweet from Steve Witkoff, the international envoy and golf buddy of Donald Trump, where suddenly, you know, just basically talking about, yes, the important role that Britain had played and praising it. And I would like to acknowledge the vital role of the United Kingdom in assisting in and coordinating efforts that have led us to this historic day in Israel. In particular, I want to recognise the incredible input and tireless efforts of National Security Advisor Jonathan Powell. This is not a normal thing to be happening. Why has that happened?
What cheeses me off about this most is that in international diplomacy, when you've got a good relationship with another country, and we have with the US, obviously had Donald Trump and had him in Windsor Castle and all the rest of it, you get to call in some favours, some. But that number is finite and discrete. And boy, oh boy, do we have some favours we need from the US right now. We need them to continue helping us with security. We need some trade help. We need help on all manner of issues. But instead of getting any of those, instead of asking for a help with something that was going to benefit the country,
British people,
Keir Starmer has called in a favour to save the neck of his own national security advisor, who is in hot water because he has sabotaged the trial of two men charged with spying on behalf of an enemy of this country in Parliament. And we are having to call in favours to get him off the hook. It is disgusting, it is despicable, it is unpatriotic to allow yourself as National Security Advisor to be prioritised above the interests of this country. And that is what has happened. Behind the scenes, we won't find out because these things are always kept secret. We won't find out. But in 40 years' time, when the records are released, I can tell you, guaranteed, 100%, take it to the bank, put your bets on now at any good high street bookies. We have requested that as a special favour through diplomatic channels. It is wrong because that should have gone to do something that would help secure British jobs, to make us more secure, to do everything else. It's wrong, it's appalling, and it shows that this government is not just a joke. I mean, it's actually working against this country's interests.
Absolutely an embarrassment that we've not played an important role. And again, there's one thing, you can play a role or not play a role, but when you're playing a role, actually helping the enemy of our ally, the democratic nation state of Israel. That is quite something. Of course, we saw, and as I predicted last week on air, and as I wrote in my Sun column last Friday, these Palestinian marches, pro-Palestinian, would not stop. They're all now saying, well, you know, it was to end the genocide. There wasn't genocide. There isn't genocide. And the bombing has stopped. So move on. Oh, and the BBC reporting, you know, we want more aid in. BBC reporting breathlessly yesterday that aid trucks are going. What, you mean like they've been going in for months? I mean, again, they've been going in. You know, these we know what famine looks like. We've seen it on our television screens horribly in many, many places over the years. We can see it right now in countries not that far from Gaza, and yet, you know, apparently these perfectly healthy looking people on the streets are we supposed to pretend are starving to death. It's just a load of abject lies and nonsense. But the pro-Palestinian marchers back out on the streets. They're free Palestine. Well, free it from what? I would say free it from Hamas. Once again, we had pro-Jewish protesters, people holding "We Stand with Britain's Jews" placards, being led away, being arrested,
Yep.
when those chanting from the river to the sea, which means the annihilation of Israel, it's a Hamas slogan, they were fine, they were left. We had some guy, and we do need to make this guy famous, hasn't been identified publicly yet, as far as I know. It's a young man who, well, apparently he's an Oxford student. Oh, gosh, I hope it's Oxford Brookes and Oxford University. It's very embarrassing. But he's... sorry, apologies, someone's talking... I'm sorry, someone's talking to me in the air. I have no idea what they're saying. OK, we've got we've got the clip, apparently. So let's play a little clip of what this delightful young man was saying.
I don't want to yap for too long, but a chant that we've been workshopping in Oxford that maybe you guys want to join in. It goes, Gaza, Gaza, make us proud, put the Zios in the ground. Gaza, Gaza, make us proud, put the Zios in the ground. Gaza, Gaza, make us proud, put the Zios in the ground.
Right, so the clip we finally got on. Gaza, Gaza, make us proud, put the Zios in. Zios, short for Zionists, right? So people, well, it's short for Israelis, brackets. It means Jews. It does mean Jews, but it also means people like me, people like Sam, who support the right of Israel, for Jewish people, to have their own homeland. I mean, he's saying put them in the ground. That he's calling for people to be killed. That's what he's calling for. He's an Oxford student, apparently, on the streets of London, openly calling for people with a microphone, for people to be killed because of their nationality, their race, their religion, or their political beliefs. Sam, forgive me, I may be confused. I thought that was illegal in this country. I thought that was a criminal offence. And you and I are big free speech campaigners, but that doesn't extend to calling for people to be killed.
Yeah, well, a few things. Firstly, come on then, mate. I'm here. I'm a Zionist. Yeah. Anytime you want.
Oh,
anytime you want.
I'll finish at 1. Come on down.
Come and have a go, and we will see who ends up on the ground first. I won't put you in the ground, but I can assure you you'll end up on the ground. Secondly, we have
to point out that would be in self-defence, just for the lawyers listening.
Secondly, we have people arrested at marches in London, the capital city of this country, for holding totally peaceful signs that say "Stand with the hostages." We have people. There have been a multitude of people who have been arrested for just looking Jewish. Frankly, at times we saw a police officer
openly
Jewish, and yet that is not punished. There is something going deeply, deeply, deeply wrong with our policing. It is absolutely transparently two-tier. Everybody in this country can see it, and it's going to lead to a dark place because the public are losing massive amounts of trust in our institutions. But thirdly, if you remember nothing else about these so-called protesters, hate marchers, remember this. They started before Israel conducted the war in Gaza, and they're going to carry on afterwards.
They started while people were still being slaughtered and gang raped and burnt alive with their children on October the 7th.
They like it when Jews get killed.
They applied for the march permits. Yeah, and when you join that march, even if you're one of the good people, you really are genuinely concerned about innocent civilians in Gaza. If you join those marches, you're joining the hate mongers. Organise your own marches to sort of campaign for peace, campaign against Hamas. You'd be doing them more good, you really would. Let's also talk about the China spy case. We touched on it in relation to Jonathan Powell. Kemi Badenoch has demanded the Prime Minister addresses what she calls the unanswered China spy case questions. Again, we've got claim and counterclaim. It does seem to be very, very clear. Anyone who knows anything at all about this case is saying the Prime Minister's advisor, the National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, that name again, or someone else somehow got involved, we're told, not with the substance of the issue. We're told by Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary. By the way, love, stop doing the Sunday round. You're an abject disaster every time you go on air. You really are not up to the job. But basically was involved in the decision to basically have to drop this spy case. And it's very, very clear. The Prime Minister is blaming the CPS. Bridget Phillipson blaming the CPS. The Crown Prosecution Service, it's not, they did, all the last government, they didn't have the evidence that China was an enemy state. You can't charge someone, by the way, the two men who alleged do deny any guilt, that you can't allege someone as spying for an enemy state if they've not been designated an enemy state. The former Director of Public Prosecutions, the current Director of Public Prosecutions, head of MI6, former security ministers like Tom Tugendhat, open statements in Parliament are making it really clear that the last government, at the time of this alleged spying, absolutely regarded and spoke about in terms of China as an enemy hostile state. It's an abject nonsense. There's been political interference without a shadow of a doubt in this trial, and the reason behind it is what we need to know. Is it because, as is claimed today, that we have basically got a country, a government that is totally beholden to China, huge amounts of debt? Has there been a deal done that £1 billion in debt, or £1 billion in something that a Chinese steel company wants to claim from the government over losses, that they will drop that on behalf of the Chinese government in return for approval for the Chinese embassy, which would be within my eye line here from this office? What is going on? Because it does seem to me that not only has Keir Starmer sold Israel down the river, he's selling Britain down the river right now.
Yeah. Everybody in the country, everybody with a nose, with eyes, with ears, can smell a great big rat here. The CPS does not just drop cases randomly. We know, because it's been reported so comprehensively that I can only assume half of Labour's ministers are actively briefing against the government on this, that there was a dossier compiled by the security services on the threat China poses to us. And they were utterly convinced that if you showed that to a jury, any jury in this land would conclude China is an enemy of ours. And of course they are. I mean, for starters, we know, not even just with these individuals, but with other cases, they're spying on our parliament, they're harassing our naval vessels, they're hacking our networks. Countries that do that are foes, not friends. But this government, China, you've got to remember, is a bit like a great geopolitical boa constrictor. It has slithered its way up into our space as a much bigger adversary, and now, having got in here, it is slowly tightening and tightening and tightening in the hopes of strangling us off. That's what it did last week when it clamped down on exports of rare earth metals that we're massively dependent on them for. And rather than fight back, rather than trying to peel them off from tail to head, this government is going limp like a pathetic little rat in the jungle, and it's going to kill them. It's going to kill us, because China, let me assure you, is the biggest geopolitical threat we have faced, not just in the last century, but ever. This is massively bigger than the Soviet Union. And yet our government seems to be in this delulu, as the kids say, cuckoo land, in which it thinks it can get some investment
as for
off them.
Cameron and Osborne, as for numerous leaders of our country, we have a problem. I mean, we have a serious problem with our elites are selling us all down the river. We really, really do need to get to grips with it. So much more to talk about. We want to take Donald Trump's speech to the Knesset in the Israeli Parliament when he does get up and speak. Just amazing jubilation scenes across Israel, roads being lined with people, those Israeli flags, those yellow ribbons, and just held aloft, as we have seen with the arrival of 20 living Israeli hostages, the final living hostages in Gaza, held by Hamas. They have been released back into the hands of the Israelis, many of them now, the first 7 already with their families who've not seen them for 2 years. 2 of the hostages, by the way, are identical twins, 2 men held captive separately who've been reunited for the first time.